The world we live in is driven by digital innovations. Innovations that we see around us every day. Innovations that are bringing the world together and that are powering the future. Hello and welcome to another episode of A Step Ahead, a special initiative by HSBC and ET NOW. And on this episode, we're meeting an enterprise that has a stellar track record in tech development and design innovation, and that is in a league of its own. That's right, we're talking about... No points for guessing, we're talking about tech leader Xiaomi. Xiaomi, one of the largest technology giants, is tapping the market at a rapid pace and has captivated many hearts in India. Innovating in products from mobile phones to home appliances, Xiaomi is using innovation to expand its footprint across the world to become a global brand. I'm now joined by Mr. Murlikrishnan B. He's the COO at Xiaomi India. Hi Murli, thanks for talking to me. First up, the tagline of Xiaomi, which is innovation for everyone. How are you at the company ensuring that there is innovation for everyone? How's that being brought about?
That core thought pretty much permeates everything that we do because we believe in taking the best of technology that exists out there and making it available to everyone.
Right.
At a very, very sweet price point. And all of this boils down to our three product pillars, so to say. We endeavor at all points of time to deliver products that have three things. One, the best of specs. Two, the highest quality. And three, with honest pricing.
Right.
And mind you, I didn't say cheap pricing, I said honest pricing. Because for us, honest pricing is about keeping our entire operations extremely lean and efficient. It's about supply chain efficiency, it's about distribution efficiency, it's about manufacturing efficiency, it's about marketing efficiency, it's about juicing the last ounce of efficiency everywhere and then delivering truly honest pricing to consumers. And when you kind of mix these three best specs, highest quality and honest pricing, magic happens.
Is that the magic mantra? You just took the word away from me. Is that the magic mantra, which is why, Xiaomi's led the sales in India, smartphone sales in India, I think for the last 8 quarters, you, I think, pretty much have about 31% of the market share. Is that the magic sauce?
It's a key ingredient, I'd say.
Yeah.
If I were to talk about that magic or secret sauce, perhaps there are a few other ingredients. One, of course, is the 3 product pillars that I spoke about. The second element is our commitment to our fans, our Mi fans, our core consumer base, and the love that they give us. And we keep saying our Mi fans are our greatest source of strength and also our harshest critiques.
Yes.
And when somebody loves you so much and they're willing to dish out criticism, you listen to them, you interact with them, you talk to them, you learn from them, and you continue getting better. And the third leg, I would say, is in many ways our commitment to make in India, which of course means that we can build out that efficient supply chain, keep costs low, and hence deliver to that honest pricing.
I want to shift a little focus. So with mobile phones, I know you have 7 factories in the country. But besides mobile phones, smartphones, you are also, there are a lot of other products that you sell. Now the key part here that I want to ask you is, how do you decide what product should be introduced in India? Is it tweaked for India? Where is the innovation angle coming in there so that the product is suited, like you said, for the Mi fans?
Right. So our R&D investments, of course, is in multiple categories. Of course, given smartphones being a significant component of our business, a lot of the R&D investments go into smartphones. And I'll talk about a few examples how we design for India on smartphones. Besides that, there is smart televisions, right? There we take the extra effort in ensuring that both the content and the hardware is suited for Indian conditions. For example, Indians prefer televisions with a higher brightness level, right? So you can't just take a global product, launch that in India. So you tweak that basis consumer feedback. The audio output needs to be higher in India because that's what consumers prefer, right? And you get to know this only if you engage with them on a consistent basis. But going back to the core, where a bulk of our R&D goes in is, let's say, the smartphones. And there, a lot of our investment is focused not just on the hardware, but also the software. And as far as smartphones go, Indian environmental conditions are unforgiving.
Yeah.
Sweat, dust, grime, humidity, pollution, rains.
That's
The
true.
smartphone is out there on the streets and it needs to weather all of those. So we take the extra effort in ensuring that we test our products to last through all of that. And we do a lot of India-specific design features. And this goes on and on. I mean, let's take software, for example.
Yeah.
Huge number of India-specific innovations.
Have to be.
For example, our MIUI, which is the operating system that powers most of our smartphones, has a feature called dual apps. Right? In India, it's very common to have 2 SIM cards, right?
Yeah.
And people want to use WhatsApp on both of those. Typically, WhatsApp on a phone does not allow you to use one app with 2 different numbers.
Right.
MIUI has a dual apps feature designed for India where you can use 2 different numbers on the same smartphone for WhatsApp. And then you have multiple such features which are designed purely for India.
Interesting. So basically you're using your global strengths but localizing it to such an extent, such a large extent that it's making great progress here in India and is definitely helping the end user, the customers. With your eyes and ears on the ground, because you have a huge network in the country and of course the inputs that you get from the fans, how have you seen smartphones make an impact at the grassroots in India?
So, look, India is a growing aspirational nation, right? And the penetration of mobile internet and affordable smartphones has changed the lives of millions of Indians.
Yes.
Right? Today, smartphone is the key that opens up a multitude of opportunities. It could be the farmer sitting in Madhya Pradesh accessing crop and weather information. It could be a plumber sitting in, let's say, suburban Mumbai looking for the next client. It is with some of these use cases in mind that we have designed our entry-level smartphone series that we called the 6A or 7A phones,
Right.
the Redmi 6A or 7A. And this is what we call the Desh Ka smartphone. Right?
Yes.
And that's exactly the proposition that it seeks to deliver at an extremely affordable price point of around 5,500 rupees. You get the best of features, a nice large screen where you can have all the state-of-the-art Android apps that you'd want with a customized MIUI interface. You can watch videos, you can stream YouTube, 4G capable, and with a battery that can consistently last a day or more.
Right.
That is a proposition that's changed millions of lives. Over 10 million units sold in the recent past from this series and growing. It is clearly the #1 selling smartphone model in the nation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Murli. It was a pleasure talking to you, but we will continue our conversation after this short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. On the other side, Murli and me are joined by Rajat Verma of HSBC Commercial Bank India. We'll be right back. Welcome back to A Step Ahead, a special initiative by HSBC and ET Now. My conversation with Murlikrishnan B, the COO of Xiaomi India, continues, and we're also joined by Rajat Verma. He's the MD and head of HSBC Commercial Banking India. Hi, Rajat. Thanks for joining us. Murli and me had a great and very interesting conversation before you joined us. But, you know, Murli, one thing I wanted to ask you is, what in your vision, how are you envisioning the future of smartphones in India? We're talking 5G, we're talking foldable phones, AR, VR. What's next?
Soothsaying question. Let me start by putting out 2 cliched statements. We live in exciting times and change is the only constant. One thing's for sure, the smartphone would meld very seamlessly into your daily life, maybe even your body. Right?
Okay.
Again, soothsaying out there. And the other thing that could effectively happen is key functionalities of the smartphone could get unbundled in interesting ways.
Okay.
For example, something gets into your specs, maybe the camera goes in there. There could be something in your watch, there could be embedded chips. I mean, who knows which direction this is going? I mean, right now, we still have exciting technology in terms of foldable phones, under display cameras, full screen displays, very, very exciting times.
Rajat, you know, innovation is something that impacts every industry. So in banking, in the last few decades or maybe last half century, things have changed so dramatically for banking. How are you seeing this space evolving? What is something new that maybe we can expect in the banking space?
The thing about banking is because you're trusting your savings or your money with the institution, you need to have a certain degree of comfort. None of that is going to change in banking. But if you look, I wouldn't say the last quarter century, but if you look at the last 2 to 3 or 4 years, certainly if you look at what's happening in India, you can see that there's such a massive change that is happening in the way that we do banking. It started off with payments, right? So that's the obvious one because, and it started off with B2C payments with UPI coming in, with volumes being what, close to 0 3 years or 3.5 years back. And now, you know, when you ask the young people who join the bank, do you use UPI? Every hand goes up. You ask the slightly older lot, and you'll find that there's hardly anybody who uses it. So you can see that there's a massive generational shift in the way people use their bank, use technology. You know, the issue really for me, B2C will be all on your phone. There's very little debate about that argument. But I think it's the B2B which is moving in a different direction. I mean, we've seen experiments around blockchain across borders. We've seen some amount of digitization in Indian trade, for instance, where, say, for example, you're an importer and you exporter and your bill of exchange is now digitized, etc. So there's been quite a lot of initiatives and innovation, but you haven't really seen that really affect the day-to-day lives of corporates. And I think that's going to be the next wave of change in banking.
Murli, what if we get, and it's already happening, the finance, the banking bit with mobiles, which is happening already. We're buying stuff by paying online from e-commerce sites. We're using mobile wallets. Do we see more and more of phones becoming more, I don't know, payments centric to help payments?
The way I would think about it is, one is the payment initiation, and the second thing is the authentication and security, right? Both of these will undergo multiple stages of evolution as we speak. One example is the way China pays today. Hardly anybody uses cash. Everything is on the mobile, everything is QR code based. In fact, you can walk into a restaurant, scan a QR code, order whatever you want to on the menu, you get served, and the payment is done seamlessly. That's how simple things have evolved using the power of the cell phone. To me, that is stage one. Now, when people start applying innovation over and above that, using NFC, using low frequency audio, using Bluetooth low energy, and so on and so forth, very, very new, interesting use cases will continue to emerge. And like I said earlier, some of the functionality can get unbundled into the other piece of electronics that you have on your person.
If I could just add to Murli's point there, you know, so obviously payments was the first part, and I spoke about B2B, but there's another angle in the B2C space as well, or in the B2B space, which is that technology and innovation can help in financing tremendously, right? So, and if you see some of the regulatory changes that have been happening in India, right? You started with Aadhaar, which is what enabled the India stack to start doing what it did. But there's another backbone, which is the GST, right?
Yes.
Theoretically, if you're looking at every large corporate, is a set of transactions, millions of transactions from smaller companies as well, right? And theoretically, if you can validate all of those transactions, then you can finance them.
Yes, true.
Now, that's not being done today, but it's not impossible to believe that that is the direction of where financing might move. And that you can see how scalable that is. So if you know that a sale has been made and you know that you can validate that sale, you can finance it. And frankly, then the creditworthiness of the small supplier will cease to be that relevant. So you can see that, you know, it's kind of moving. The direction of travel is the payments, which was, don't want to say it, but somewhat the low-hanging fruit, or the obvious one which needed to be addressed. But you can see that it can move to many different things from here on.
So, Rajat, you know, when we talk about banking, customers, of course, play a really important role. They're the core, both B2C and B2B. But how is the bank maybe seeing customers coming to them and maybe asking for some kind of innovations or newer service, newer products? And also maybe in some places where the bank is going out to the customers and saying, hey, guys, why don't you try this? Is you seeing that a lot now?
Well, I'm seeing both, Sumit. I think, to be fair, a lot of the B2C stuff that happened, UPI, etc., was driven a lot by the development of the India stack and by certain luminaries who thought and envisioned that this is how it will work. And it was banks were launching it and hoping that clients would bite. And now you see where it's going. Right? I mean, anything that is well structured, well developed. But in the wholesale space, I see a very different dynamic. Look. Certain clients of ours, certainly the ones who are, you can see that there's some sort of a theme. Clients who are very innovative in their general thinking, Xiaomi being a great example, they push us a lot. Okay, are we connected host to host? How quickly is your file coming? Can you move money faster? Can you do reconciliation on my own ERP, etc.? So they push us in a direction that we start thinking of these problems quite proactively. Equally, there's a lot of things which are incumbent on the bank to push to its clients. So, for example, as you may know, on trade services, the government went out and said, okay, let the bill of entry or be digitized. What that meant, the purpose behind that was that you reduce paper, right? But this has been done several years back, and it takes time for banks to change. These are big giants moving, and just to change their direction, it takes a little bit of time. And what we started, then we went out actively to customers saying, look, hey, are you aware this is available? And do you really want these, for each invoice, do you want these 1,000 pieces of paper, or do you want to get rid of it? And great response, very, very enthusiastic response. So to answer your question, you need both the bank pushing clients, and equally you need the client set pushing the banks as well. And I think that's happening.
So it's a perfect mix of the pull and the pull that has to, the pull and the push that has to keep going.
Exactly.
Through all of that. Murli, I'm going to take a step back from the innovation that happens in smartphones, the innovation that happens in the manufacturing process, because we were speaking earlier, you've got 7 plants in India that are manufacturing your smartphones. As the plants that you're opening, is there innovation being put into place in the manufacturing process?
We believe in just in time, right? In order to deliver to honest pricing, in order to keep your supply chain extremely lean, your entire back-end supply chain, the entire procurement network needs to work for the, let's say, the nth minute.
Right.
And that's when the supply needs to come in, which of course requires a lot of innovation, using data, using networks, using connectivity with all of our suppliers. And then you have this entire notion of managing the yield in your entire assembly line, which is a multi-stage process. Some of it's automated, some of it is semi-automated with various test checkpoints in between. How do you use the data that comes in from each of those automated tests to loop back into continuing to enhance process design is an ongoing challenge that we are always focusing on. And the beauty of this is you're never done, right? You're never perfect,
That's
right?
true. That's
and
true.
Therefore there is always an opportunity to get better, and that's what keeps our life extremely interesting there.
Of course, that's for sure. Rajat, from the angle of the bank, when you're working on your processes and things like that, how much of global inputs come in the processes?
So there's a need for us to have standards which are common across, which are fundamental to us.
Right.
And these are underpinned on customer service, customer fairness, commercial orientation, all of that. It has to be a combination of all of that. Having said that, a lot of countries are going in different directions, right? So we were talking about where China payments have gone. Now the Indian payment system has gone in a very different direction based on innovation that has happened in India. The Indian regulators are seeking, are sometimes asking for much more than what their global counterparts are doing, and sometimes they're doing less than that. So the local innovation then therefore becomes really important. And for us, fundamentally, we have to follow, we are a regulated industry, right? So we have to stay within the bounds of what regulation asks us to do. But there is so much of process innovation within that that we are finding, and we are surprising ourselves that, look, you challenge a process, and you find, as Murli was saying, in some ways you find that there's always little more to do, and you find imperfections all the time. So actually, just we feel that we are at a stage in HSBC's kind of in our operations in India that we are really improving the way that we function. So, for example, we've started what we call DigiTrade, which is digitization of trade.
Yeah, yeah.
And we feel that we'll move away from a quarter of paper that we were transacting just through the course of the year.
Wow.
Now, I cannot share the numbers, but these are millions of pieces of paper,
Of
right?
course, right.
So
right,
these
right.
are, these changes are coming, and they're coming because of innovation of the ecosystem and ourselves. So actually, it's quite a, in some ways, it's quite an empowering environment to be in.
Yeah, for sure. I can imagine. It's
Right.
exciting.
Another way of looking at how innovation is impacting the entire money space is if you look at this entire spectrum of, let's say, save, grow and pay.
Yeah.
What you do with your
Right.
personal finances. There is a lot of interesting innovation happening in the startup ecosystem. They're trying to figure out new business models, new consumer experiences, and of course, traditional banks are up to that challenge. They're figuring out,
Yes.
taking the best practices and leveraging their decades and years and centuries of expertise in making their offerings to consumers better. Net, the consumer is the winner. They're getting a better offering either from the traditional banks or from the new age startups, and that's the best outcome that we can envisage here.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you make, Murli. I think go back, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years, and there was this talk about startups versus banks,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Where startups start, the challenger banks elsewhere, etc. And I think over the period of time, we found that there is, we had the customers, we had the trust, and the startups had the speed, the innovation, the mindset to sit outside some of the boundaries that we sat in.
Yeah.
So really now it is about the startups working with us as opposed to against us. So we, we are working with several innovators across the world and in India, and we find that partnership is very, very useful.
Of course. And totally maybe about them approaching this sector from a totally new point of view and, joining hands. So, and like you said, so it's just a win-win situation for everyone. Well, thank you so much, Murli. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And thank you, Rajat. Again, a big pleasure talking to you.
Thank you
so much for watching. You were watching HSBC and ET Now's A Step Ahead. Some really interesting conversations. We got some great insights into the innovations that are happening both in the smartphones and electronic space as well as in banking. Both industries are being disrupted. Just keep a tab on them, keep seeing how these things are being developing. The important takeaway, I think, is that listen to your customers, but also kind of, tell them what you think they might need. That'll all help you stay a step ahead. That's all on this episode. But before we go, here are some quick highlights of this episode. Thank you so much for watching.
MNCs should take cues from their global offices but need to design their products keeping in mind the Indian environment and consumer. Essential for companies to take continuous feedback from their customers and to incorporate the same into their products and services. A culture of innovation should be encouraged at companies. There is always an opportunity to improve a process.